My son stopped eating mid-bite when his grandmother leaned over and whispered it. "Are you sure he's actually my son's?" Her voice was quiet, but not quiet enough. Logan was 8 years old, and he heard every word. His fork clattered against the plate. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. He looked at me first, then at his dad, Eric, then back at his grandmother. "Grandma," he said, his voice so small it broke something in my chest. "Do you not want me?" The table went silent. My father-in-law stopped cutting his steak. My sister-in-law, Faith, froze with her wine glass halfway to her mouth. Eric just sat there, staring at his plate like it might tell him what to do. His mother looked around the table, realizing too late that everyone had heard. I felt my hands start shaking under the table. Logan's eyes were filling with tears, and I needed to get him out of there before he started crying in front of everyone. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "We're leaving," I said. "Logan, get your jacket." My voice came out steadier than I felt. Eric finally looked up. His face was red. "Mom," he said. But it wasn't angry or defensive. It was embarrassed. That's what broke me. Not anger at what she'd said. Embarrassment that she'd said it out loud. His mother started talking. "I didn't mean for him to hear. I was just asking a question. You can't blame me for wondering when he looks nothing like our side of the family." I grabbed Logan's hand. He was shaking. "Come on, baby," I said. We walked out of that house, and I didn't look back. In the car, Logan sat in the back seat and cried quietly. "Mom," he said, "am I not really Dad's?" I pulled over 2 blocks away because I couldn't see through my own tears anymore. I'd known Eric's mother didn't like me from the beginning. We met at a coffee shop when I was 23, both reaching for the same table. He was charming and funny, and we dated for 6 months before I met his family. His mother, Naomi, opened the door and looked me up and down like she was inspecting produce. "You're the girl," she said. Not a question. Not my name. Just the girl. During dinner that first night, she asked about my family. Where they were from. What my father did for work. When I said he was a mechanic, her mouth got tight. She asked if I'd finished college. I said I'd done 2 years but had to stop for financial reasons. She looked at Eric. "I see," she said, in a tone that made it clear she saw plenty. Things got worse after we got engaged. Naomi told Eric I was moving too fast. Told him I was probably after his money, even though he was an assistant manager at a hardware store making $40,000 a year. She suggested we wait another 2 years at least. When we got married anyway, she wore black to the wedding. Not a sophisticated black dress. A funeral outfit, complete with a black hat. People noticed. Faith pulled me aside at the reception. "Don't take it personally," she said. "Mom's just protective." But her eyes said she knew it was worse than that. During my pregnancy, Naomi barely called. When she did visit, she'd make comments about how I was showing early, how much weight I was gaining, whether I was really eating as healthy as I should be for the baby. After Logan was born, the comments shifted. "He has very dark hair," she said when he was 2 days old. "Neither of you had dark hair as babies." At his first birthday, she studied his face. His eyes are so different from Eric's. When Logan was 3, she started saving photos. I found out later she had a whole folder on her computer comparing baby pictures of Eric to pictures of Logan, annotating the differences. She showed them to her friends. "My daughter-in-law's son," she'd say. Not my grandson, her son. She sent Eric articles about paternity testing. Forwarded him news stories about men who raised children that weren't theirs. He'd show them to me sometimes, laughing uncomfortably. "She's just being weird," he'd say. "You know how she is." When Logan started school, Naomi volunteered in his classroom. She'd mentioned to the other mothers that he was her son's wife's child, emphasizing the words in a way that made people ask questions later. One of the other moms, Paige, pulled me aside at pickup one day. "I don't know how to say this," she started, "but Eric's mom has been saying some things. She wouldn't repeat exactly what, but her face told me enough." I confronted Eric that night. He called his mother. She denied it. Said people were misunderstanding her. Eric believed her or pretended to. It's easier to think people are misunderstanding than to admit your mother is actively sabotaging your wife. I didn't have proof, just secondhand reports and a sick feeling in my stomach. The night of the dinner, after I pulled over and held Logan while he cried, I made a decision. I took out my phone and started documenting everything. I opened a new note and typed out exactly what Naomi had said at dinner, with the date and time and who was present. Then I went back through my memories and started listing every comment, every incident, every weird interaction I could remember. It took me an hour sitting in that car while Logan fell asleep in the back seat. When I was done, I had 3 pages of notes going back almost 9 years. I forwarded it to an email address Naomi didn't know about. Then I took a screenshot and saved it to a locked folder on my phone. Eric didn't come home until after midnight. I was still awake, sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. He walked in and his shoulders were slumped. "We need to talk," he said. I waited. My mom feels terrible, he said. She didn't mean for Logan to hear. I looked at him. That's what she feels terrible about? Not what she said, but that Logan heard it? Eric sat down across from me. She's always been suspicious, he said. Because Logan doesn't look like me. I felt something cold settle in my chest. And, I said, do you share her suspicions? He didn't answer right away. That silence told me everything. You think I cheated on you? I said. He shook his head quickly. No, but what? But she's got you wondering. He looked miserable. I don't think you cheated, he said. But maybe we could do a paternity test, just to put it to rest. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. I pulled out my phone and opened my photo gallery. I had thousands of pictures. I scrolled back to a photo from 7 years ago, Eric and Logan at the beach. I held it up to his face in the doorway. Look at this, I said. Look at his smile. That's your smile. His eyes when he laughs. Those are your eyes. I scrolled to another photo. Look at the way he stands, one hip cocked out. You stand exactly the same way. Eric looked at the photos, but I could see he was still uncertain. It's not about the pictures, he said. It's about being sure. I put my phone down. If you need a paternity test after 8 years to be sure your son is your son, then we have bigger problems than your mother. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Amber, and she'd handled a friend's divorce 2 years before. I told her everything. The years of comments, the dinner, Eric asking for a paternity test. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, you need to document every interaction from now on. Every text message, every phone call, every visit. Save everything. She explained that what Naomi was doing could potentially constitute grandparent alienation, though it was hard to prove. If Eric sided with his mother and it led to divorce, I'd want documentation of her behavior and his complicity in it. She charged me $200 for the consultation and gave me a packet of information about protecting parental rights. I went home and started going through my phone. I had text messages from Naomi going back 6 years. I screenshot every single one, even the ones that seemed innocent, because Amber said context mattered. I went through Eric's phone while he was in the shower. I felt guilty about it for about 30 seconds. Then I found the group chat. It was him, his mother, and Faith. The messages went back months. Naomi would send photos of Logan and write things like, he really doesn't look like you did at that age. Eric would respond with non-committal things like, yeah, he's different. Faith mostly stayed quiet, but occasionally she'd chime in with Mom, stop. I took screenshots of the entire conversation, 217 messages. I sent them all to my secret email account. Eric agreed to marriage counseling. His idea, which surprised me. Our therapist's name was Tyler Mercer, and he had an office that smelled like lavender. In our third session, Tyler asked Eric to describe his relationship with his mother. Eric said they were close. She'd raised him alone after his father left when he was 12. She'd worked 2 jobs to keep him in private school. She'd sacrificed everything for him. Tyler nodded. And now she's suggesting your son might not be yours, he said. How does that make you feel? Eric's face crumpled. Confused, he said, because she's usually right about people. I felt my whole body go cold. She's usually right? I said. About what? About my ex-girlfriend who stole money from me, Eric said. About my friend Shane who turned out to be selling drugs. Mom has good instincts. I looked at Tyler. So you're saying your mother's good instincts about criminals mean she's probably right that I committed paternity fraud? Eric backtracked immediately. That's not what I meant, he said. But the words were already out there. Tyler leaned forward. Eric, he said, has your mother ever been wrong about someone? Eric thought about it. I could see him searching his memories. Not that I can remember, he finally said. Tyler looked at me. I stayed quiet. Tyler turned back to Eric. Has she ever liked any woman you've dated? Eric opened his mouth, then closed it. He couldn't name one. Tyler let that silence sit in the room for a long minute. We're going to talk about enmeshment, Tyler said, and healthy boundaries with parents. Logan started having nightmares. He'd wake up crying, asking if he was really part of our family, if his dad was really his dad, if his grandmother hated him. I held him and told him the truth. That some people have problems that make them say cruel things. That his dad loved him. That I loved him. That he was ours and nothing would change that. But inside I was screaming, because Eric's doubt was infecting our son. Because a paternity test would tell Logan we weren't sure either. I made an appointment with Logan's pediatrician. Dr. Vaughn had known Logan since birth. He took one look at Logan and Eric's baby pictures side by side and laughed. They're clearly related, he said. Same nose, same chin, same ear shape. Genetics are funny and kids don't always look like clones, but this is definitely your son. He wrote it in Logan's medical file and offered to provide a statement if needed. I showed Eric the pediatrician's notes. He nodded but didn't seem convinced. That's just his opinion, Eric said. A medical opinion from someone who studied genetics, I said, based on 8 years of seeing both of you. Eric was quiet. Then he said, Mom wants to come over and apologize to Logan. Absolutely not, I said. Not until she apologizes to me first, and not until you decide whose side you're on. Eric looked hurt. I'm not on a side, he said. She's your mother and I'm your wife. Those aren't sides. He left the room. I sat there and realized I was losing my marriage because my mother-in-law had spent 8 years poisoning it, and my husband was too enmeshed to see it. I started calling other family members. I called my father-in-law, Naomi's ex-husband. His name was Crawford and he'd remarried years ago. He lived 3 states away, but he knew his ex-wife well. I told him what had happened. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, that's why I left. I asked what he meant. She did the same thing with Faith, he said. Convinced me Faith wasn't mine when she was a baby. I got a paternity test. Faith was mine. But Naomi couldn't let it go. She needed there to be something wrong. Someone to blame for why her life wasn't perfect. I asked if he'd talk to Eric. He said he'd try, but that Eric had always believed his mother's version of the divorce. That Crawford was the bad guy who abandoned them. The truth was more complicated than that. Crawford called Eric 3 days later. I wasn't supposed to hear the conversation, but I picked up the extension in the bedroom. Crawford told Eric everything. About Faith's paternity test. About Naomi's need to create drama. About how she'd driven away every relationship Crawford tried to have after the divorce by telling his girlfriends he was abusive. Eric was quiet. Finally he said, Why didn't you tell me this before? Because your mother told you I was lying, Crawford said. And you believed her. You always believe her. Do you see what she's doing to your family now? Eric said he needed to think. He hung up. I hung up. When I came out of the bedroom, Eric was sitting on the couch with his head in his hands. 2 weeks after the dinner, Faith called me. We'd never been particularly close. She was Eric's sister and she'd always kept a polite distance. But she called and asked if we could meet for coffee. I left Logan with my mother and met Faith at a Starbucks halfway between our houses. She looked tired. I'm sorry, she said as soon as I sat down. For all of it, I didn't speak, just waited. Mom did the same thing to me, Faith said. When I was pregnant with my daughter, she told my husband I'd probably cheated, made comments about how the baby didn't look like his family. We almost divorced over it. I asked why she never said anything. Because I was embarrassed, Faith said, and because I thought if I stayed quiet, she'd leave your family alone. That's not how it works, though. Faith pulled out her phone. She had screenshots, hundreds of them. Messages from Naomi in family group chats, on Facebook, in text threads, all of them planting seeds of doubt about Logan's paternity, about my faithfulness, some going back to before Logan was born. Faith had been documenting for years. She sent me everything. I sat in that Starbucks for 2 hours forwarding screenshots to my evidence email. Faith told me about her own experience with a therapist who specialized in narcissistic family dynamics. She gave me the therapist's number. Before we left, she hugged me. I'm going to tell Eric everything, she said. Whether he believes me or not, Faith kept her word. She went to Eric's office the next day and told him everything. He came home that night looking shell-shocked. We sat at the kitchen table and he told me what Faith had said. I didn't react. I just pulled out my laptop and opened the folder I'd been building. I showed him everything. The screenshots of texts, the group chat messages, the timeline I'd created, the pediatrician's notes, Crawford's phone records showing he'd been trying to call Eric for years, but Naomi had changed Eric's number without telling his father. Documentation from Paige about Naomi's comments at school. Statements from 2 other mothers who'd heard Naomi questioning Logan's paternity at school events. Eric read through everything. It took him almost an hour. When he was done, his face was gray. I made him a deal. Go to therapy with Tyler individually for at least 6 sessions. Actually listen. Actually examine your relationship with your mother. If after 6 sessions you still want a paternity test, I'll do it. But if you ask for one after therapy, I'm filing for divorce the next day. Because at that point, it won't be about genetics. It'll be about you choosing your mother's paranoia over 8 years of being Logan's father. Eric agreed. He started therapy the following week. I started documenting his sessions. Not the content, but the dates and times he went. Amber said it would matter if we ended up in court. Naomi tried to call me 17 times in the week after Faith talked to Eric. I didn't answer. She showed up at the house. I didn't open the door. She sent Eric long text messages about how she was only trying to protect him. About how she had a right to express concerns. About how I was turning the whole family against her. Eric showed me the messages. I watched him read them. I could see the moment where he started to recognize the manipulation, the guilt-tripping, the victim narrative. He looked up at me. She's not going to stop, he said. I know, I said. So what do we do? I asked. He took a long breath. We set boundaries, he said. Real ones. Eric wrote his mother a letter. Tyler helped him draft it in therapy. It said that Naomi's behavior had caused serious damage to his family, that her questioning of Logan's paternity was unacceptable and would not be tolerated anymore. That if she wanted a relationship with Logan, she needed to acknowledge the harm she'd caused, apologize sincerely to both Logan and me, and attend family therapy sessions. That until those conditions were met, she would not have contact with Logan. Eric sent it by certified mail, so we'd have proof she received it. She called him 23 times the day she got it. He didn't answer. She showed up at his work. He had security escort her out. She sent a letter to our house calling me every name she could think of and saying I'd stolen her son. Then things got worse. Naomi started posting on Facebook, long rambling posts about being cut off from her grandchild, about cruel daughters-in-law who isolate families. She didn't name me directly, but everyone knew. She posted old photos of Eric and Logan with captions like, "I miss my real grandson," and "before she took him away." People commented. Some supported her. Some asked questions. A few people who knew the situation called her out. She blocked them. She joined online grandparents' rights groups and posted there about her situation. Someone sent me screenshots. She was telling people I'd had an affair, that Logan wasn't Eric's biological child, that she was being punished for telling the truth. I called Amber again. She said we had grounds for a cease and desist letter. We drafted one explaining that Naomi's public statements were defamatory, that she had no proof of her allegations, and that if she continued posting about us, we would pursue legal action. We sent it certified mail. Naomi took down the Facebook posts, but she started calling other family members instead. Eric's aunts, his cousins, anyone who would listen. She told them I'd threatened her with a lawsuit for being a concerned grandmother. Some people believed her version. Eric lost relationships with 2 uncles and a cousin he'd been close to. They cut off contact, believing Naomi's story that we were being cruel and abusive to an old woman. 4 months after the dinner, we were in Tyler's office for a family session. Eric, me, and Logan. Tyler asked Logan how he was feeling. Logan said he was okay but sad. Sad about what? Tyler asked. About Grandma, Logan said. I miss her, but I don't understand why she said I wasn't Dad's son. If she thought that, why did she pretend to love me? The question hung in the room. Tyler looked at Eric. Eric's eyes were full of tears. He got down on his knees in front of Logan's chair. I'm so sorry, buddy, he said. None of this is your fault. Grandma said something very hurtful and very wrong. You are my son. You have always been my son. I love you more than anything in the world. Logan looked at me. Is that true? He asked. I nodded. Tyler asked Logan if he had any questions for either of us. Logan thought about it. Does Grandma still think I'm not Dad's kid? He asked. Tyler looked at me and Eric. Eric answered. I don't know what Grandma thinks anymore, he said. But it doesn't matter, because I know you're mine. That session broke something open in Eric. He stopped defending his mother's behavior entirely, started seeing the pattern clearly, started getting angry at what she'd put all of us through. He wrote her another letter. This one didn't offer conditions for reconciliation. It said that he was choosing his wife and son, that her behavior had been toxic for years, and that he needed space indefinitely. He didn't send it certified mail. He didn't want proof she'd received it. He just wanted her to know he was done. Naomi responded with a letter threatening grandparents' rights visitation. Amber laughed when I showed it to her. She said grandparents' rights only apply when the parents are unfit or there's been an established relationship that's beneficial to the child. Naomi would have to prove we were unfit and that losing contact with her was harming Logan. Good luck with that, Amber said. 6 months in, I realized I was starting to breathe easier. Logan's nightmares had stopped. He'd started laughing more. Eric was lighter somehow. Like cutting off contact with his mother had lifted weight I hadn't even known he was carrying. We were rebuilding. Slowly. Going to marriage counseling every week. Having actual conversations instead of walking on eggshells around Naomi's name. I'd started trusting Eric again, little by little. One night Logan asked if we could do a science project about genetics. He wanted to understand how kids inherit traits from their parents. We got a kit from the teacher supply store. Spent a week looking at dominant and recessive genes, building Punnett squares. Logan made a poster showing how his dark hair came from Eric's grandfather on his father's side. How his eye shape came from me. He presented it to his class for the science fair. Then the twist came at the worst possible time. Logan won second place at the science fair and we took him out for ice cream to celebrate. Eric's phone rang. It was Crawford. Eric put him on speaker. You need to know something, Crawford said. He sounded grim. Your mother called me today. She's planning something. I asked what. She wanted to know if I'd help her file for grandparents' rights, Crawford said. When I said no, she told me why she's really been questioning Logan's paternity. My stomach dropped. Crawford continued. She told me she had an affair when we were married, before Eric was born. She said she's never been completely sure Eric is my biological son. She's been projecting her own guilt onto you this whole time. The ice cream melted in front of us. Logan kept eating, oblivious to what we'd just heard. Eric's face had gone completely white. Crawford kept talking. She told me she's been terrified for years that Eric would find out, that he'd reject her the way she's been rejecting Logan. So she's been doing to your family exactly what she was afraid Eric might do to her if he learned the truth. It's textbook projection. Eric hung up the phone. We sat in that ice cream shop in silence. Logan asked if something was wrong. Eric said no, just grown-up stuff. We drove home without talking. That night after Logan went to bed, Eric fell apart. He sat on the bathroom floor and cried like I'd never seen him cry. Not sad crying, angry crying, deep shaking sobs that seemed to tear out of him. I sat next to him on the cold tile and didn't say anything. When he could finally speak, he said, "Everything was a lie. Every time she made you feel crazy. Every time she made Logan cry. She was just afraid we'd do to her what she'd done to Crawford." I held him while he cried. Later, in bed, he said, "I want the paternity test now. Not for Logan, for me. I want to know if Crawford is my father." Eric called Crawford the next day and asked for a paternity test. Crawford agreed immediately. They did the test at a lab downtown. 2 weeks later, the results came back. Crawford was Eric's biological father. Eric called his dad and told him. Crawford cried on the phone. Said he'd wondered for 30 years, but had never wanted to put that burden on Eric. Eric asked why he'd stayed married to Naomi as long as he had. Crawford said because of Eric and Faith. Because he'd loved them even if he wasn't sure they were his. The test only confirmed what his heart already knew. They talked for 2 hours. Made plans for Crawford to visit in a month. Eric hung up and looked at me. "I should have believed you from the beginning," he said. I looked at him. "Yes," I said. "You should have." We told Faith about Naomi's confession. She sat in our living room and stared at the wall for a long time. Then she said, "So she spent my whole childhood telling Dad I wasn't his, making him doubt me, making me feel like I had to prove I belonged in the family, and none of it was about me at all. It was about her guilt." Faith started crying, angry tears. She said she was done, completely done. She'd tried for years to maintain a relationship with Naomi despite everything. But this was it. She was cutting contact completely. She asked if we'd support her if Naomi tried to use family pressure to force her back in. We said yes. We'd support her no matter what. Naomi found out somehow that we knew. I don't know if Crawford told her, or if she just sensed it. She showed up at our house on a Tuesday afternoon. I was home alone with Logan. She rang the doorbell repeatedly. Then she started pounding on the door. I called 911 while Logan hid in his room. The dispatcher said an officer was on the way. Naomi kept pounding. She was screaming, "Let me see my grandson. You can't keep him from me. I have rights." The neighbors came out of their houses. One of them, an older man named Dalton, walked over and told Naomi she needed to leave. She turned on him. "This is none of your business," she screamed. He stood his ground. "I'm making it my business," he said. The police arrived 7 minutes later. They found Naomi sitting on my front porch crying, telling them I'd stolen her family. The officers took statements from me, Logan, Dalton, and 2 other neighbors who'd witnessed the incident. They gave Naomi a warning about trespassing and told her if she came back, she'd be arrested. They asked if I wanted to file for a restraining order. I said yes. They gave me the paperwork and explained the process. I filed the next day. Eric came with me to the courthouse. We stood in front of a judge 2 weeks later with all my documentation. The screenshots, the timeline, the pediatrician's notes, the police report from the pounding incident, statements from neighbors and family members. The judge read through everything. Then he looked at Naomi, who'd shown up to contest it. He asked her if the allegations were true. She said they were misunderstandings. The judge looked back at the evidence. "Ma'am," he said, "this is 8 years of harassment. I'm granting the restraining order for 2 years. No contact with the petitioner, her husband, or their minor child." Naomi tried to speak. The judge cut her off. "If you contact any of them, you'll be arrested," he said. "If you post about them on social media, you'll be arrested. If you show up at their home, their work, their child's school, you'll be arrested. Do you understand?" Naomi's face crumpled. She looked at Eric. "Please," she said. He looked away. The judge dismissed us. We walked out of the courthouse into bright sunlight. Eric took my hand. "I'm sorry," he said again, "for doubting you, for putting her first, for not protecting Logan sooner." I squeezed his hand. "We're fixing it now," I said. "That's what matters." Logan turned 9 3 months after the restraining order was granted. We had a party at a roller skating rink. Crawford came and met Logan for the first time as a grandfather who knew for certain he was a grandfather. Faith brought her kids. My parents were there. Eric's cousins who'd believed Naomi's version didn't come, but we didn't miss them. Logan skated around the rink with kids from his class, laughing and falling and getting back up. Eric put his arm around me. "This is what it should have been all along," he said. "Just us, our family, our people, no poison." I still have moments where I hear Naomi's voice in my head. "Are you sure he's actually my son's?" On bad days, I can see Logan's face going pale. Hear him asking if his grandmother didn't want him. I wake up sometimes at 3 a.m. checking the locks, even though the restraining order has held for over a year now. Logan still asks about his grandmother sometimes. He wants to understand why she said what she said. Tyler's been helping us talk to him about it in age-appropriate ways, about how sometimes people's own pain makes them hurt others, about how it wasn't his fault, and wasn't about him at all. Logan seems to accept this most days. Other days, he's sad. We let him be sad. Eric's relationship with his mother is permanently severed. The restraining order expires in 8 months. He's not sure what he'll do when it does. Part of him wants to hear her apologize, to acknowledge what she did. The bigger part of him knows she never will, that she'll find a way to make herself the victim, to blame me or him or circumstances or anything but her own choices. Tyler says Eric is grieving the mother he thought he had, not the one he actually did. That grief takes time. Eric's gotten close with Crawford again. They talk on the phone twice a week. Crawford's teaching Logan how to fish over video calls until he can visit again in the summer. Faith's doing better too. She started her own therapy to work through everything. She told me last month that cutting off contact with Naomi was like removing a thorn she'd been carrying her whole life. She didn't realize how much energy she'd been spending managing her mother's emotions until she stopped. We have dinner together every few weeks now. Our kids play while we drink wine and talk about the ridiculousness of it all, about how we both spent years thinking we were the problem, about how much lighter life feels now. The restraining order isn't justice exactly. Naomi hasn't faced real consequences beyond being legally barred from contact. She's still telling anyone who will listen that she's the victim. She still has family members who believe her. She still goes to church and plays the martyred grandmother. But she can't get to us anymore. Can't plant doubts in Eric's mind. Can't make Logan feel unwanted. Can't poison our family from the inside. That protection is worth more than any legal verdict could be. I'll never get back the years I spent being gaslit. Never undo the damage done to Logan that night at dinner. Never erase the doubt Eric carried or the time we lost to it. The anger hasn't disappeared. It's just quieter now. Some days it flares up and I have to breathe through it. Other days I can almost forget. Eric and I are rebuilding our marriage brick by brick. Some damage is permanent, but we're learning to work around it. To trust again even though trust was broken. To protect what we have instead of waiting for someone to take it away. Logan's doing okay. Better than okay, actually. He's thriving without Naomi's presence in his life. His teachers say he's more confident, more engaged. He stopped having stomach aches before family events. Stopped asking questions about whether he really belongs. He knows he's loved. He knows he's wanted. He knows his dad is his dad, and nothing anyone says can change that. That's the gift we gave him by cutting off contact. The certainty that he is ours and we are his. So that's the whole thing. 8 years of systematic undermining by a woman projecting her own guilt onto an innocent child and his mother. A husband who took too long to choose his family over his mother but eventually got there. A legal system that gave us protection even if it couldn't give us accountability. And a kid who's going to grow up knowing that sometimes the right choice is to walk away from toxic people. Even if they're family. Even if it's hard. Even if it hurts. Would you have stayed silent as long as I did? Would you have pushed for the confrontation sooner? How would you have handled a partner who doubted you because his mother planted the seeds? I think about these questions sometimes when I tell the story. There's no perfect answer. Just choices made in the moment with incomplete information and too much emotion. Like this, if the story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real stories about surviving family dysfunction and coming out the other side. Sometimes you just need to hear that someone else made it through the same nightmare, that the gaslighting ends, that you're not crazy, that protecting your kids from toxic family members isn't cruel. It's necessary. You're not alone in this.